That's fine. Will they help us in the prevention? Well, that's a lot about anti-poverty. And some law enforcement people don't want to work on anti-poverty stuff. So this is when we love having our sociologist friends in camp with us in the social work school. And thinking about what does disruption mean? How can we intervene once that process has already started? And how do we get law enforcement and others not to frame this person as a criminal defendant, but as a victim when that is the appropriate analysis and what should be applied? So our standard is how can we adapt what we're doing to increase victim safety and offender accountability? Pretty basic idea. I just love these, you know, these men in Philadelphia, a group of African American and Latino men, and got together and said, you know, we're part of the problem. We want to raise some money. We're going to do this Men Can billboard campaign. Everywhere you go in Philadelphia, giant billboards in a number of different languages showing men of different races and cultures. And so you see, or you maybe can't see. This one says, Mike told his brother he had gone too far. And so they have a few of them, but this has been a powerful campaign to think about how do we reach those who are committing the crimes. And because it turns out that male batterers and female batterers care very much what other men think, right? They don't hear women's voices, they don't respect us, so we gotta have something coming from the men. So you can go to instituteforsafefamilies.org. Oh, those guys are so fabulous. You will not believe what is on that website. It was formerly Philadelphia Physicians for Social Responsibility. Everything is free. They have these laminated cards for doctors and nurses and social workers that teach you how to screen for domestic violence and child abuse. They're for pediatricians. They have a whole curriculum for working with adolescent boys. Particularly the focus, it was developed by and for African American adolescent boys. There's just tons of stuff. Plus they're available for technical assistance. And I just love, they don't copyright anything. So you can download it and do what you want, put your name on it. They don't care who takes the credit. Then we did a billboard in Boston. One of the things you want to do is pull in people who have money. And ad agencies are great. So we went to an ad agency and I gave them all these articles about domestic violence and child abuse. And I said, okay, could you come up with a billboard that would kind of address both? I wouldn't have thought of this in 150 years. And so the billboard said, Susie has her mother's eyes. It showed a little girl with 2 black eyes. If you want help or you want to get information about help, contact this. And was probably the most successful billboard campaign that we ever did. We also want to blanket our communities with safety plans. And one of my passions is teaching children how to be safe. As a foster parent, for many years, I just love these 911 bags for kids, and we got our Maricopa Association of Governments in Phoenix to do this, Spanish on one side, English on the other. Basically a coloring book that teaches kids how to stay alive. Through the American Bar Association we did this. I know you think lawyers don't ever do anything good, but these are bunny bags that the cops have boxes full of them to give out. They get a little bunny, says, hi, I'm Huggy Bunny, you can hug me when you're scared. And then the coloring book, and it has a little safety plan for kids, and the coloring book is for kids who can't read, and it has things like connecting the dots, because we learned through our focus groups with little tiny children, even 2-year-olds can be taught how to dial 911, especially now how much they love cell phones, right? If you've been around any little kids, they want your cell phone. So the safety plans that we developed for kids through, oh, we did these ones with Maricopa Association of Governments, so it's English on one side, Spanish on the other. An action plan for how to stay alive. Nice information to have. So for the kids, things like making sure you get out of the fight. Too many kids try to intervene and protect and get harmed in the process. And you can see there's plenty of room to put your local numbers as well. These are not copyrighted. And in here, it shows how to get them, or I can email copies to you and you can put them on your website. But none of this stuff is copyrighted. We want massive distribution. I love what the police in Huntsville, Alabama did. They have boxes full of these. Every single call they go on, if there's any child there, it can be a dog barking, home invasion, doesn't matter. Child there, they're getting a 911 bag. The schools, the churches, synagogues, they got a consortium of their church groups to put these together. So lots and lots of creative things. The water and electric company sending safety plans to every customer. Kroger Supermarket put them throughout their store. SunTrust Banks David Chapel Missionary Baptist Church in Austin, our wonderful Reverend Joe Parker, put them in all the church bathrooms and made sure to talk about these issues as part of his sermons every week. Just wonderful. So what is going on at the University of Kentucky? The next time I come back, I want every bathroom. And I've been in 2 of them so far. I saw nothing to help me if I was currently being battered. As I was trying to leave yesterday at Arizona State, one of my first-year criminal law students came in. Her husband wants a divorce. He's beating her up. And I thought, oh, I'm good at telling everybody else what to do, but we don't have brochures in our bathroom because there are 400 forms you got to fill out, and I have to promise to buy the little plastic brochures myself. So I'm trying to shame them into it and say, at the University of Texas, they bought the plastic brochure holders. But if you want me to, I will have a little bake sale in the atrium and say, this is what it's for, because, you know, we're all in budget crisis now. But so maybe this is something a church group can do. Oh my goodness, I'm almost out of time. Okay, so you guys are going to have to read through a whole lot of this on your own. This is just my center that's going on right now. But what I really want to talk to you about is doing this work with a sense of vision and not giving up. Whatever it is, your plan, your vision, your dream about how you can be involved in helping domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking victims, to hold on to that. And this has been very true in my own life, just the importance of staying focused. I knew since I was about 12 I wanted to be a lawyer because I watched my mother raising 7 kids by herself, and people were always taking advantage of her because she's so sweet and she didn't know how to speak up for herself. But my grandmother told me women couldn't be lawyers. Now, Perry Mason was my big hero. I still, when I'm intimidated in court, I picture Perry Mason, the way he would stride in the courtroom. And it helps me kind of put my shoulders back, and that's right, I'm going to go in there and do my job. So I hope you have somebody that is your vision. I know some of you are like, Perry Mason, who is that? I hope you get to watch that you can buy on eBay the old black and white. Oh, they're so wonderful. So anyway, my grandmother says, women can't be lawyers, but you can be Della Street. You can be a legal secretary. So I said, okay, good enough for me. But in 7th grade, they told me I wasn't smart enough to be in the college track, so they put me in the secretarial track. So I was so mad. I wanted to refuse to learn how to type. I will tell you, one of the first things that I did when I graduated with honors from Harvard Law School in 1990 was to send my junior high school in New York City a copy of my transcript and tell them, do not judge 12-year-old children and tell us what we're not capable of doing. I'm sure they looked at my family and said, look at these brothers, drug dealers, her older sister's dropped out, her daddy's an alcoholic. We are not going to take up a spot for her. Be careful who you judge. Be careful who you decide is not worthy, is not capable. So fortunately for me, I ended up finally finishing high school, 8 different high schools. That's a different discussion about juvenile delinquents and kids who act out. But anyway, so I married my high school sweetheart and couldn't figure out how to get out as I tried going to courts. They were of no help. The judges in New York City told me it was my job to figure out how to not aggravate my husband. Our pastor told me that maybe I cooked too much Italian food because I'm Italian, and so family priest, you know, maybe you cook too much Italian food. I think you ought to get cookbooks from some other cultures, diversify the menu. And I tried that and things only got worse, and I thought, I must be really stupid. Now, he wasn't trying to get me killed. He didn't know about safety plans. He didn't know about bunny bags. Every church, synagogue, mosque, because for many of us, that's the first place we turn, and they ought to have this information. But fortunately for me, I left. I had to go on welfare. There was no way I could figure out how to be on the run and hold down a job, and I had no job skills. Fortunately for me, through the CETA Job Training Program, Comprehensive Employment Act, one of Lyndon Baines Johnson's Great Society programs, Legal Aid hired me, $5,200 a week in rural New Hampshire. I thought, well, at least I'm safe. I'm far away from New York City. Gave me that big break. So I thought, okay, well, I can start going to night school. And by the time I was finished with undergraduate, my boss said, I'll write you a letter of recommendation. Where would you like to go? And I said, well, I'd like to go to Harvard. I hear they have a lot of money. And he said, oh, well, no offense, Sarah, but you know, you're not from the right family, and getting kicked out of 8 different high schools, and you're a single mom, and you want to do this domestic violence stuff, and nobody in your family's ever gone to Harvard, they're really not going to let you in. But I thought, well, there's one thing I know how to do. I know how to pray. I know how to focus on what it is I want, and then you just turn it over, say, okay, if it's meant to happen. So, but I'd help out a little bit. By then I was living in Boston. I'd get in my beat-up Ford Escort, and I'd just drive by Harvard Law School, and I'd roll down the window and yell at them as loud as I could, you're going to let me in. And then I got a little braver, and I'd walk around inside. They have all these different color lockers, and I picked an orange one. My son loved the Syracuse Orange Man. Most amazing thing happened. They not only let me in, they gave me a full scholarship, but when they assigned me an orange locker, I said, oh, you better be careful. What you wish for, what you pray for, what you envision, you might just get it. So then I was terrified. I thought, I know everybody in this school is smarter than I am. I better lay low. But the court and the shelter kept calling, could you just come back with this one more victim, this one more family? So I thought, well, maybe a few students want to learn how to do this. So I put something in the student newspaper because it was free. Anyone who wants to learn how to be a court advocate, come to this room. 78 students showed up for the first meeting. By the end of the year, we had 250 students, 30% of them men. This is still the largest student organization, Harvard Law School. Also started the Harvard Women in Prison Project, the Harvard Children and Family Rights Project. I loved law school. I wanted to kiss the floor every morning. I was having so much fun. I could not believe what I was learning and what I realized I am never going to have to be on welfare again. I am going to get to cross that bar, and that judge is going to have to listen to me. And not only is going to have to listen to me, but I am going to be so prepared. I am going to learn how to speak in a way that they will just find so persuasive. I'm still working on that one, you know, numbering my arguments. So when I tell you that there is nothing that you cannot accomplish, it is absolutely the truth. We were able, through that project, 12 of the largest Boston law firms set up domestic violence pro bono projects. Every one of the Boston area hospitals still has a domestic violence counsel. For the last 20 years, I've gone back to Harvard Medical School. I get a morning with all first-year students, several hours with all faculty of the dental school and all of that, just at a conference at Harvard Law School. It is just amazing, amazing, once you envision what it is you want to see happen. But you got to have the courage to think broadly. And I close with a reminder of Patti LaBelle's quote, when you have been blessed, pass it on. Thank you very much. Sorry I didn't get very far. See, there's more. I guess I thought I was going to keep you here till about midnight, right? I mean, this is really kind of ridiculous. Oh, a lot of books, articles, see, resources. Okay, so that's the end. Any questions?
A number of you have to go to class, and if you do, please feel free to go ahead and do that. But Professor Buel also is willing to answer questions at this point if you have those.
Yes.
So in approaching different folks in prosecutors' offices here in Kentucky about trafficking cases, they say initially we don't see trafficking cases. Should I speak into this? Our prosecutors oftentimes say they don't see trafficking cases, but then when we turn it and ask them in a different way and say, well, do you see children being sold for prostitution or, you know, exchanged for drugs? They say, well, yes, we do. And they don't want to look at them as trafficking cases. They're not familiar with the state statutes, and so they want to go with the other charges. What would be your suggestion as far as how to approach that issue with our prosecutors?
Very good question. So we want to figure out, for each group that has power to help us, what are the arguments that will be persuasive for them? And so it's very helpful to have been a prosecutor for 7 years because I can get into that mindset and think about, okay, what does it take to make the case? And that's really what a lot of them are interested in doing. So first, what we want to think about is who would be best to sit down in a meeting with them? And you have already a trafficking group here. I know I went online and just looked up a number of different things, and I can give you some of what I printed out about what's going on in Kentucky. But you want to be prepared because these people might not be with what are the 6 reasons why the prosecutor's office ought to care about these cases, ought to want to prosecute. So just off the top of our heads, we can think, okay, number 1, because these are victims who are being prosecuted as, I'll find it when we're done because I know I printed it out. So number 1, these are victims who are being prosecuted as offenders. And that is completely contrary to the legislative intent of all of the Kentucky laws. Second, there's a tremendous amount that they can do as prosecutors to increase these victims' safety by holding the offenders accountable. Third, I just happen to have with me a copy of the Kentucky statutes, and it looks like we could really help you at University of Kentucky. We have students who will help you prepare these cases. I had college students, community college students, high school students when I was a prosecutor who would go through my files and help me make sure that the day before trial that I had, well, hopefully not the day before, a week before, do I have every document I need to put this case forward. Prosecutors are generally extremely overwhelmed. They have way too many cases, too few staff. So if you are willing to help put these cases together, that can make a huge difference. And hopefully there are internships, externships, independent study. This could be part of writing a paper up about what you do, whether you're undergraduate, gender and women's studies, law school,